All right, guys, we're going to wait here just a minute or so, get some more people in, and we'll start the AMA. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I'm sure some more people will roll in as we go. Basically, I just want to start by thanking everybody for participating and being part of the Latium community. The goal of this AMA today is to kind of give clarity, and where the project is, where we're heading, what the future is for Latium, and to just give a little bit of insight into, why we do what we do, and why we're approaching things the way that we're approaching them. So I'm going to start off with just some general rules of how we're going to make this AMA flow, because we want to keep things organized and we want to make sure that everyone that has questions, they get addressed. So we took in a bunch of questions from the community on Reddit. A lot of you guys probably already know that. So we've taken those and we've pretty much broken them down into categories of relevant topics. We're going to go through those one by one. While we're going through a topic, you guys can comment, ask questions around that topic, and I'll try my best to address it as we're going through. After we're done with all the topics that we have slated, we'll have an open AMA where you can pretty much just ask anything you want, and I'll do my best to answer all questions that you guys have. So don't hesitate to use the chat, and we'll go ahead and get things started. So first thing I wanted to address was just the general business direction of Latium. I know we've had a lot of people saying things like such and such does it this way or such and such does it that way. And a lot of curiosity around why we don't do things the way everyone else does. Okay. So I wanted to give a little bit of clarity on why that is. The crypto industry as a whole is very young. Really the whole idea of a token sale and ICO, all these things are relatively new and have really only gained popularity over the last 12 months. There are a few examples prior to that, but most of it's taken place over the last 12 months. So there's not a lot of history to see longevity in the space. And that's a problem when you're opening a business or you're trying to accomplish a goal, not having, history to look at and predict the outcome, right, of certain actions. And because crypto is so young, you have a lot of different things that are taking place. It's normal in any new emerging industry, especially in technology. There's a lot of opportunity for companies to come in and make money. There's a lot of people coming into the industry trying to scam people. All these things I believe will work themselves out over time. But because we're in that stage, it's really hard to look around and say, well, these guys are doing this or these guys are doing that. And that means that they're doing it right. So I think that, with the team that we have here, we're using our other business experiences, and we're using examples that have been out there for decades that work and have success. If you look at the big players in tech, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, these companies took years to evolve and into what they are today. No one came out and hyped a product for 2 or 3 months and got 1 billion users. That's just not the way businesses actually work. I mean, you can do that, but the problem is, can you back that up with longevity? And with crypto, we really don't have any examples to know if that's true or not. The longest standing ICOs probably date back to obviously Ethereum. Ethereum kind of would be, I guess, a French case because it was the first of its kind. But even Ethereum, if you look at the history of Ethereum coming out in 2004, releasing a token sale, there was not an enormous amount of hype around the project. And comparatively speaking, they did not raise a ton of money at that point in time, comparatively speaking. And so if you look at how long it took that token to get traction and how long it took that token to really have value, it took quite a long time. In fact, even going into last year, it was sub $10. And now we're sitting at 600 or so today. Things that have value long term, they're always going to take time to create. A lot of people, they see Twitter, they see Facebook, and they just assume that they came out the door like that. Facebook took years to acquire a user base. When they first started, they were only targeting colleges. Twitter within their first year of operation, they had less than 100,000 users. So it's a matter of having a plan in place and executing that plan. And so when we look around the space and we see other companies, hyping an idea or hyping a project, we're not inclined to just say, okay, well, that means they're going to be a great company. I don't know who's going to exist next year, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with those methodologies, but I am saying they're not proven. And because they're not proven, that's one reason that the Latium team does not follow the same concepts. We're sticking with concepts that are proven. Concepts like, that Amazon, Twitter, and Facebook have used. They built great products. They made a desire for their product. They marketed their product and they grew. So our general business direction is founded in that same concept. We're building a product. We want to make the product as good as it can be. We want to market the product. We want to grow the user base, and we want to create longevity. So that might be something that sets us apart. Only time will tell if that's a good thing or a bad thing. All I can do is look at history and my own business experience and try to take that. And as CEO of a company, I mean, that's my job. My job is to make those decisions. And at the end of the day, all of that rests on my shoulders. If I make the wrong decisions, then that rests on my shoulders. If I make the right decisions, that rests on my shoulders. And so when a user is asking me why we don't do something, it's not that I want to blow that off, but I have to weigh that against against my knowledge, against my experience, and against what all the data I can look at tells me. And I think doing anything less than that would be foolish and would be a mismanagement of the company, in my opinion. So that's kind of where we are with business direction. Again, if you guys have any questions about what I just said, don't hesitate to go ahead and comment. I'm more than happy to address those now. We're going to move in to marketing, and because we have a lot of people in the community talk about that. So I'll give you guys just a half a second if you want to ask a question around the business direction, and then we can move forward. All right. Well, a big, I'd say probably the number one question is around exchanges, and probably number two right behind that is marketing. Sometimes those switch positions. So we know that's a big concern for the community. Some of that I've somewhat addressed in that previous statement. But really the marketing side of this plays in 100% pairs with having the product, right? We're not going to not market. In fact, we started some small marketing campaigns, just so you guys know. We started some small marketing campaigns this week. Those campaigns were really around collecting metrics, okay? And I want to get into a granular level with marketing and digital marketing, because digital marketing is something that I've done for a long time. It's something that, I've been in the tech space and in the web space for well over a decade. And we've spent, within my groups of companies, I've spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in digital marketing. The idea that you can throw money at a problem without having a calculated plan is just false, okay? I'll give you some real world examples. You've got terminology like a CTR, a CPA, okay? These are cost per acquisition and click-through rates. The difference between one marketing campaign and another could be literally 1,000-fold. When we were in their token sale, we were working with a marketing firm. Their CPAs for us were in excess of $300. Okay, we took that marketing in-house, and I was able to accomplish under $9 CPAs. Okay, so there's something to be said on how we're going about spending money, right? It doesn't matter how much money a company has if they spend it frivolously. And so we're very focused on making everything that we have in this project count for something and getting value out of it. So we're not inclined to just go contract a bunch of marketing firms, which I can tell you from experience, 95% of digital marketing firms will not provide value. They will not get you value for your dollar. They will produce very little results. And I know this from experience. So when we go out to market, we're going to be very calculated in how we spend our money. We're going to be meticulous. We are going to test the market. We're going to get metrics, and we're going to scale based on our results. You're not going to see us go dump $1 million into a marketing campaign unless that campaign is proven to be able to scale and have value. Now, I see that as a positive for Latium. There might be community members that don't feel like that's positive. I don't know. But I can tell you that is going to be our approach. And the reason is because we don't want to spend, 100 times the value to acquire a user. We don't. We want to grow as many users as we can within the capital that we have. We want to grow longevity, and we want to have a product that's going to retain users. Okay, so why are we not marketing the beta? Well, because the beta, quite frankly, is not a fully functional product today. The patch will make it a lot closer to a fully functional product, and ultimately the production release will make it a fully functional product. So as we approach production, what you're going to see is you're going to see testing the markets. You're going to see campaigns launched. Our goal is to try to acquire, after this patch, acquire around 10,000 users as a test sample. I feel like we'll be able to do that pretty easily within a 2 to 6 week period. We'll use that data that we collect there, and then we're going to make decisions on how we move forward with marketing. Do we make some changes in how we're marketing? Do we make some changes in the feature set in the app? There's a basic A/B testing here when you're making a new technology. And you can think a lot of things in your head, but until they're market proven, you don't want to go out and put every dime you have into something until you know that it's going to get the results you want. Can you take a tour of my office? We'll get there. As far as app incentives, we had some questions about that. We have 60 million LATX set aside for incentives within the application now. How are those going to be used? Well, they're going to be used in a lot of different ways. One way that they're going to be used is promotion of tasks, right? So when an employer comes online, they're going to be able to come in and they're going to be able to get some free LATX to be able to post tasks. That's one way that they're going to be used. Another way is partnerships, okay? And we're going to go into this a little bit more detail as I get into exchanges. But some of those partners, we hope to be exchanges in the future. Some of those partners will be physical locations. They might be a retail shop. They might be a restaurant. They might be a bar or a movie theater. We want them to participate in Latium, and we're structuring a way for them to do that without an upfront cost in the short term, right? And that's what those application incentives are going to be used. So it's going to be targeted at task creation, and it's going to be targeted at partnerships, okay? Now, of course, I did not address exchanges, which is a big request from the community. I just want to be totally frank with everybody, okay? We have applied to the top 50 exchanges in the world based on volume, okay? I know that a lot of you guys have your concepts of how that works and how it functions. I can tell you that those concepts are incorrect, okay? The industry as a whole is so saturated. If any of you read my notes on KuCoin, you would see that exchange alone, and this was months ago, had 1,500 applications in queue to be added. Now, anybody who follows that exchange knows that they were adding roughly 1 token a day. So you just look at the math behind that. You're talking about 4 years of tokens in queue, and that was growing every day for them, right? If you take that out to exchange like Binance, that's going to be exacerbated. I have no idea how many applications Binance has, but I know that at the size that they are compared to KuCoin, it's going to be much higher than what KuCoin has. Now, if you look at how frequently Binance is adding a token, what does that look like? Okay, so I don't want to give you guys any false hope that we are going to be added to Binance tomorrow. Okay, there are a lot of projects out there, and our focus is on making Latium a great product. And through that, all the big exchanges wanting to add us. I think if we try to go about that any other way, we're going to have a lot of difficulty. I mean, the idea of even getting a response from an exchange at this scale is difficult. And the reason is because, again, the market is quite saturated. At this point, a lot of exchanges are just doing an outright bidding process. And we witnessed it ourselves on Huobi. I think that one project paid over $23 million for a listing, if I did my math correct. $23 million to be listed on an exchange. And it wasn't even Huobi's primary exchange. It was 8X. So what do you do in an environment like that? Well, I think that those prices are extremely inflated. I also don't believe that those prices can live long term. And I think it would be very foolish and mismanagement for us to take the funds that we have and apply half or 90% or 130% into an exchange for short-term gains, when we can take that and focus on making a great product, focus on building a great user base, and then the issue with being listed won't be a problem. So hopefully I've addressed the marketing side of your questions. Let me see if you guys have any questions here. Let's see. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on. Get a sip of water here. A little free marketing. Okay. So there's also a big problem with crypto adoption in the world. We had one guy bring up a point about the idea of pricing, right? Like how do people work for crypto when it's so volatile? And that's a really good question. And I can also say it is something that we have thought about, but it's a really good question. And I'm glad they brought it up, because it's a problem not for Latium. It's a problem for all crypto. My background is financial markets. I used to be a financial markets trader. I used to trade FX. I ran an FX brokerage house, and I currently have FX-based businesses. But I can tell you, volatility is directly attached to the lack of real-world adoption. They go hand in hand. Crypto is volatile because really the only way it's utilized is for speculation. So if that's the case, right, you can expect volatility, and it will continue. The only way to solve that is through adoption. It's just like the US dollar. The US dollar moves constantly. It's moving every millisecond, right? The price is moving. But people don't experience that because it's fractions of a dollar that are being moved, although it's moving constantly. And the reason for that is that it's stable because it's not just speculative. It's being used in commerce. It's being used around the world, and it's being used by billions of people across the globe, because the US dollar isn't just used in the United States. And so what that does is it creates stability. It creates a true economic environment in which a currency has value and is utilized. If you look at less used currencies, you're going to find that they're more volatile. You look at the peso, you look at the South African rand. These currencies have less usage, although they still have high usage by the world standards. They have less usage, and because of that, they're more volatile. The smaller a currency is as far as usage, the more volatile it is. So in crypto, we have a space where everything's speculative, right? There's really no real-world application, or should I say very little. There are Bitcoin ATMs. There's a few merchants that might take Bitcoin, but ultimately, Bitcoin is very speculative in its nature currently. So in order to solve that problem in the short term, right, Latium plans to have the ability to hedge, right? So for an employer, it's not really a problem because they know the risk coming in. Whatever they're buying LatX at, that's their risk. They already know it. As an employee, if I come in and say I'm working an asset that has, a value of $1,000 US, well, if the market's moving 20% in a day, that's a lot of market risk that I'm exposed to, right? So the idea is that an employee will be able to hedge their position immediately upon accepting the task. So they'll be able to determine what value they're going to get out of it. There will be employees that want that market risk. They want to use that as a way to speculate in the market. There will be other employees who want to lock in their value before they start working. And I think you'll see both ends of the spectrum there with usage. But that's how we want to. That's how we're going to address the market risk that's associated with crypto. But I do want to be clear that the problem we're trying to solve here is bigger than Latium. It's usage of crypto, and I think that all new technology goes through a progression. I started in tech when I was very, very young. Okay, I was 8 years old when I first started writing code, and I was lucky because my father was actually in that space in the 80s when most people were not. But I can tell you that what that technology started out as and what it is today are totally different. The idea back then was very much almost a geeky, coding. You're dealing with DOS and command lines, and it just wasn't user friendly. And real adoption of that technology came about when people started making the technology easy to use. When you had Windows and you had Apple bring about mouses and the concept of having a computer in your house and you could point and click and a UI environment instead of command line. That's when you really started having growth in those spaces. And since then, it's boomed, and now everybody has a supercomputer in their pocket. But that could have never happened had you not had that technology easy to use. And I would argue currently crypto is not easy to use. The everyday person doesn't understand it. I mean, I'm quite technical, and I've made mistakes in crypto. It's easy to do. And so those problems have to be solved. And that's what our goal is with Latium. We want an easy to use application that anyone can get and anyone can use. And it's going to function very similar to an environment that they're already used to. And we believe that's going to help adoption. So let's see, are there any questions around adoption and our plans there? Okay. Again, guys, if you're asking questions that are not around the subject matter we're talking about, I'm happy to address them, but they're going to be addressed after we're done with this, and we're going to have an open AMA at that point. Okay. So the next point I wanted to talk about was, an internal exchange. Some of you guys are aware that we've been building an internal exchange. We're getting very close. It won't be long, and we'll be releasing that product. We're going to be releasing a hard release date very soon. I don't think it's going to be long at all. Some people have asked us, how is it going to work? What is it going to be like? And I'll try to make it as clear as I can. It's going to be more about usage and the ease of buying and selling. It's focused around being able to participate in the platform as easily as possible. It's not really focused on trading analytics, charting. This is focused at the everyday person. Okay. I would argue that a general crypto exchange for the everyday person is going to be hard to use. They don't understand limit orders and stop orders and charting and SMAs and all the things that come with that environment. Those are trading platforms. What we are trying to build is essentially a place where buyers and sellers can meet. They can transfer their funds easily. I can sell something for this price. They can buy it at that price. That's easy to understand. It's transparent, and it's the least amount of complication that we can have in that process. That's our goal. So it won't mirror other exchanges in that way. It's not going to be an analytical tool or a trading platform to start. Now, over time, if there's value in adding those features and people want those features, which I believe there's a certain sector of people that do, we can add that as an additional layer. But again, our focus market here is everyday people. We don't want to speak only to the trading platform savvy, because a lot of people go on a trading platform and they have no concept what they're doing. They have no concept what it is. And in general, that's enough to drive somebody away. Somebody who wants to participate in something, they look at something for a few minutes, and if they don't understand it, they're on. So we need something that's going to be easy to grasp by every single person. They can look at it within a minute or two, figure out how it works, and that's what we're trying to build with the internal exchange. When we release the internal exchange, the currency pairs will be pretty limited. We're definitely going to have Ethereum. We're working to get Bitcoin. It might be upon immediate release. It might be a little bit after. We're still working through that. But over the coming 2 months, we'll be adding additional pairings as we get usage on the platform, and we make sure that we're comfortable with everything and scaling. We'll be adding on more coins. So you'll see that platform grows over time. Over the next month to 2 months, you're going to see more and more pairs being added. Something else that we really haven't discussed is what the internal exchange does. Excuse me, guys. More marketing. What the exchange does is it's not just an exchange, okay? Latium with this patch becomes a multi-currency wallet, okay? And I think that that's just as important, if not maybe more important, than the exchange for usage. Because, again, our goal is to make crypto easy. And in order to do that, you've got to have a facility that an everyday person can understand. They don't have to download a 100 gigabyte blockchain. When they want to send funds, they're not using some encrypted hash key to send it. They know they're sending it. So with this, you're going to get a wallet. Every currency we add into the system, or should I say every currency and or token we'll be adding into the exchange, you'll have the ability to hold that within the Latium system, you'll have the ability to transfer within the Latium system. You can transfer to any user who's a Latium user, and you can do that feeless, and you can do it in real time. So those are the things that we're bringing to the table with the internal exchange. So it's not just an exchange patch. It's also bringing on user-to-user transfers and ultimately a wallet that's feeless. So outside of the internal exchange with this patch, we're also, we've had some requests for security. Obviously, when we're talking about an exchange, we need security, and security will be added as well with the patch. So you're going to have two-factor authentication. You're also going to have some control over token expiration, so you can actually control, how long your browser's holding your session open. So those will come online with a patch as well. All right. Is there any questions about the internal exchange? Let's see. How about multiple accounts? Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by that. Like the idea of having multiple Latium accounts. Currently, there's nothing stopping you from having multiple Latium accounts, but you're going to have a singular user attached to every currency. So it's not like you're going to have multiple currency wallets, at least for now, within a single user account. There's nothing stopping you from having multiple user accounts at this point in time, and ultimately, I don't think we'll ever stop that. So, if you wanted to have multiple accounts, you could do it by setting up multiple users. All right. So outside of that, I want to go into the production environment. We've had some comments about development. How long things take, things like that. Let's see. People deposit USD from banks to Latium. Not with initial release. Fiat will not be part of this patch. Okay, I want to be clear. Fiat is a goal. It's actually on our timeline. If you look at our roadmap, and we believe that we will be able to deliver that. But no, this patch is not going to be fiat based. This will be crypto to crypto only. So on the production environment, we've had some comments asked about what we're doing, because and a lot of this stems from the fact that we're not an open sourced project. Now I could elaborate on why we're not open sourced. One of the main reasons is security. Okay, because what we're building, which we're going to get into later, because I'm going to explain some of the tech that we really haven't explained to you guys. So you're going to get to see some new feature sets later in the session. But it really comes down to security. And making a totally open source project, it really eliminates our ability to totally secure it. If you have a pattern to defend against fraud within the system, it becomes very transparent to user. There's also the concept of intellectual property. And that's, with what we're building, we feel like there's value in that. And we don't want to open that up to the general public because we don't think we should, for security reasons and for intellectual property reasons. Now, there will be parts of the project that will be open source over time, especially our B2B APIs and things like that. So there will be elements of the project that will be open source. But in general, Latium will stay closed source because we believe it's the most secure way to move forward. With that being said, you guys really can't see, you can't see what we're working on. And we've had people critique, our releases and say, well, a single developer could build this, in no time. Well, to that I say, bring me that developer. I'll hire him, because I've been in web tech for over a decade. I have a good idea of what we're building here. I know the back end. I know the front end. I know that we're working in 3 front-end environments. I know that we have over 100 back-end API routes already built. I know that we're building on 10 repos. Everything scales and HAs are available. All this is on proprietary infrastructure. So I understand what we're building. I understand the work that's involved. I'm not going to tell you that, we can't be critiqued. I mean, 1,000 developers would all probably do things 1,000 different ways, and that's fine. But what I did want to show you guys, and this is, again, we're pretty far out, on production release, but I just wanted to show you guys, we are building apps. This is Latium on iOS. It's not that we're not building this stuff. We just, it's just not open source. You can't see it. So it's there. It's working. It doesn't look great yet because it's, a good month and a half, 2 months out from release. But it is a project that we're working on, and not just iOS. We're also working on Android as well. So we're doing exactly what we've told everybody we do, and we're trying to pull off within the timelines that we stated we pull off. And there is quite a lot going on here, and I think that anybody who doesn't see that's probably because they're not a web developer, or they don't see the complexity of the logic structures that we're building because they're not public. So as far as where we are and moving forward and the roadmap, to date we've hit every deadline that we set. I have no reason to believe that we won't continue to do that. With development, there's always unknowns, and sometimes you get into a situation where something's going to take you longer than you expect. So I can't say anything with guarantees because I like to honor my word. But we are working very hard, and we'll continue to work very hard. To release these release the project in the timelines that we've stated and meet every goal that we've put out there in the public to meet. And that's really all we can do. What software are we using? Most everything we're using is JS based. We're pretty much a Node shop for the most part. They're different. We have a few different processes that we use outside of Node, but Node is our core backend structure. So when you're looking at the site, I think we're using React.js on your front end, and we're using Node on the back end for the most part. The sales site was mostly PHP. And the reason is because I'm a PHP coder. So, but my backend guys are all Node. Any other questions about the actual development progress? Where we are with it? Any technical questions about that? Okay. All right. So the next thing I want to kind of address is, B2B relationships, partnerships. This is something that we've had a lot of people ask about, why we're not partnering or when we're partnering or who we're partnering with. And I just want to let you guys know that, we are definitely having conversations on the backside, and there will be partnerships being announced in the future that we've already solidified, and there will be quite a few of them. But really, the B2B side of what Latium is going to be is the exchange. There's the ability, long term, there's the ability for that exchange to do many things. One is to be a universal front end for other exchanges. Another is a transfer method for one exchange to another. This increases arbitrage opportunity. It creates better price discovery. There's a lot of advantages that come out of aggregation. And again, with my background being Forex, a lot of this stuff, I've worked on in the past in more developed financial markets. Crypto is still really lacking from financial tech standpoint, and a lot of the projects are more addressing surface issues than they are institutional issues, like the idea of bridging or prime brokerage. These are concepts that really don't exist in crypto yet. Ultimately, they will, because they make sense. If you look at one exchange and look at another exchange, and you see there's a massive spread difference, right? That's because you have decentralization between your exchanges and you have no aggregate price engines, right? Ultimately, those things will be solved. We believe that Latium can be part of that long term. Outside of just the exchange side of it, we're also going to be partnering with other tokens, right? Other communities. That partnership will be on the basis of promotion, using Latium to promote their token sales. It will also be on the exchange base, their token sales being added to the exchange. There's a mutual synergy there between both parties, because we're getting some exposure for their community. They're getting exposure to our community. And ultimately, we feel like the Latium network can grow relatively quickly through partnering with the right partners. Some of the future developments, we hope that the B2B relationships will be beyond just crypto, meaning real world applications. We would love to see something like Starbucks and McDonald's, accepting Latium or being a Latium location. And we believe with the technology that we're building into the production release with GPS tracking, the ability to know you're in a location, it directly ties into the ability to market what I would call human traffic, right? Right now, you've got digital traffic, something anyone in the digital space knows about. You're getting web traffic. We want to take that and make that actual physical traffic. And we believe that in that, you kind of mitigate a third party, which is a marketing agent, right? What's the point of putting a banner ad up? Well, the point of putting a banner ad up is that you ultimately hope somebody clicks on it and comes to your site. Well, if you had a way to get somebody directly to your site without going through the banner ad, that would be a more direct route. And the same thing is true if I run a restaurant and I want to get clients into my restaurant. So we see a lot of opportunity in the future for real world applications of the Latium network. And we are working towards that. Of course, those features will be a bigger focus after production is available, because when you're talking about going to a major chain, you've got to show that you have a network that's got value. And and we know that. So that's what we're trying to build right now. Let's see, any questions? Yes. Oh, the idea of crowd sales. It could go full board crowd sales. That's one possibility. The promotion of it is another possibility. Bounty consumption, participation, getting marketing. That's another side of it. But ultimately, what we want is we want partners that there's synergy between the communities. And it's a good way for us to expand our network. It's a good way to get exposure to other projects. So there's benefits on both ends in that. 50,000 more active users. That, quite frankly, that's just a dollar amount. You go out and you put marketing dollars down, you get users. But we don't want 50,000 users to walk in the front door if they walk out the back door. We want to keep them, right? And that's why we're focused on the project having retention and being a good product. If it's not, it doesn't matter how many people walk in the front door if they're not staying and using the platform. GPS location, yes. It will be part of the initial app. We will have physical tasks, as we've stated. We will have one-to-many relationships, as we've stated. The way that will function will be up to the task creator. They'll have a few options. Okay, one option will be the ability to use GPS to start the task. Right. So for those of you using the platform currently, as an employee, you're starting the task. That will be a GPS trigger. It can also be a scan of the employer's app. So if the employer wanted a physical presence where the work was being done, they'd have that option. If they wanted it to be triggered by GPS, they'd have that option. So examples of that would be, I hire someone to mow my yard. Well, I might want to meet them out there. That's a one-to-one relationship. But if I hire 1,000 people to show up at a rally, right, I probably want a way to manage that. That's a little bit easier. And so in that scenario, you probably would want a GPS trigger. And that kind of plays into our next subject as well. So we'll get into that a little bit more when I talk about the next feature set. Outside help. Yes. We're definitely, we're actually going to be releasing a hiring process. We said we'd do it, and we should have done it earlier. But we'll be releasing a hiring process here within the next week to 2 weeks. So people will be able to start applying. We already are utilizing the platform for Latium tasks and purposes, and so we will continue to do that. But we will be actually going out to the community to hire staff. So we'll have the ability to apply for jobs to be part of the Latium team within the next week to 2 weeks. That's a great question, Chris, about 1099. And the answer to that is no. Not at least not currently, because it's property. But it will be, if you earn more than $750, the IRS deems that you need to have a 1099. So as soon as we have the ability to transfer that to fiat, it will certainly be a trigger for anyone within the U.S. There's no question about that. I mean, we're going to be fully compliant and maintain that. Please give us a view. As far as a bounty to promote the platform, it's not something we're really considering. I mean, well, it depends on what you mean by that. I mean, we're currently offering a bounty to market the platform. That's what our Twitter task is. So, of course, we're going to be utilizing our own platform to grow the network without question. Now, our next subject here, this is kind of cool. I don't think that we've ever talked about this before, okay? But it kind of plays into, application incentives and also GPS tracking, like the ability to know somebody somewhere. Okay, so there's a big problem in the digital space that a lot of people don't talk about. It's even plaguing the biggest companies in the industry, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. They all have the same problem, and that problem is fake users, okay? Excuse me. So all these big companies, they have, hundreds of millions of users, but no one really knows how many of those people are actually human. And what I mean by that is I might have 10,000 Twitter accounts. I might have 1 million Twitter accounts. Twitter's released some numbers. I don't believe that they're accurate, but I think that when they released numbers, they were claiming somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40% of their accounts were false. Of course, they have no way to know what that actually looks like because, quite frankly, there's no technical way to know this. Okay, the way that technology works, there's absolutely zero way to know if somebody's a real person or not, given current technology. You have IP addresses. You can look at someone's DNS. You can look at their user agent. There's a lot of different things that are available on a web browser, but none of which are certain, and all of which can be manipulated by an intelligent person. So that is a problem that needs to be solved. It's a problem that's been on the table for us for years. It's something that we knew we needed to solve because it doesn't just apply to us. And this is all kind of leading up to our concept, which is called proof of human. Okay. With production release, this will be the first that I'm aware of in the world that's actually validating that a user is a real person. And not only that they're a real person, but that they only have one account. It's going to be an optional thing. So users, like we just talked about, if somebody wanted to have multiple accounts, they could do that. But they're only going to be able to have one verified account. And the reason that's needed is in order for anything to be trusted, right? Trust score, I can come in, I can just apply for tasks and mark them complete, right? And I just burn that user and create a new one. And ultimately, I can just keep creating users and make their trust, work their trust score up. If I burn, I just create a new user. And that problem goes on and on and on. The only way to solve that is by bringing that back to the human level. And when a user is assigned to a person and that person has no way to create another account, now we have a system that can actually be trusted. We also have a system that has massive B2B applications. Because again, it's not just us. I mean, this is something that plagues the digital space. And I think users are becoming more aware of this in general. Social media users, they're becoming more aware that not everything they're interacting with is true. Maybe they're interacting with a bot, right? Maybe this guy's got a bunch of likes because he paid for those. They're not necessarily real people. You go to Fiverr, you go pay somebody to make you look like you've got a lot of followers. All these things are prevalent in the world of the internet currently. But I believe that none of those things are ultimately beneficial for society. And I don't think that the end user really appreciates it. And so the idea of taking that back to a real human and having proof of human, this allows our users to pick, right? They don't have to interact with somebody that's verified. They can interact with somebody who's not. But they know in doing that, right, that there's greater risk. And we're leaving that as a free market up to them to decide whether they want to participate with a verified user or not. So there's going to be natural incentive to become verified, and the verification process is not going to be too taxing for a user. However, once you're in the system, if you're wanting to open up another account or you're a bad actor and you burn the account, your account's burned. You will never get another account. You're out. Your trust score is at a 300. That's your real trust score. It's like credit. You can't just go create a new credit profile just because you make bad decisions. You live with that and you can work on it and make it better. And our system will be very similar, meaning that if you come in today and you try to screw people out of money and mark tasks complete that you didn't do, that's fine. You can do that. But ultimately, your trust score is going to be damaged. And maybe next year or 2 years later, you decide, well, I really do want to use the platform. Well, you've got to work your score back up. And all those facilities are available to you. But what won't be available to you is the ability to come in, just create a new user, and start over. So does anybody have any questions about that? That's actually one of the features that I personally am extremely excited about. I think, people ask us what sets us apart, and I think that doesn't just set us apart. It gives us a massive potentials for partnerships because it's needed across the board. And our ability to be able to port that user as a verified user to other services if they choose to, that's going to be very big for Latium in the long term. So if there's any questions about proof of human, or maybe somebody's technical and they're like, well, how could you possibly do that? I have no problem answering to some degree of detail, but I don't want to give away everything because I don't want someone else doing it. Verification process entail a video. User will upload a video. That's it. It'll be about a 30-second video of themselves, and that will give them the ability to be verified. That's it. So the front end of that is going to be pretty easy for people to utilize. They on web, they could just upload, a video file. On mobile, they'll be able to use their camera and take it right there on the spot. All right. Well, if there's any other questions about proof of human, we can go ahead and move on. All right. So we've also had some questions. Well, you know what? I kind of missed a question, and I'm going to just address it briefly. We had some people ask us about, competition, and Kenya was one specifically mentioned. Just wanted to state that, I don't see Kenya as direct competition, and the reason is we're just doing very different things. I mean, they're targeting a very niche market, and that's fine. There's business to be had in that niche market. They're targeting service providers. If you're looking for a service provider, you can use that platform to find it. Latium is a much broader project, and hopefully that's become clear already in this AMA, but it's a much broader project. Our focus is not just service providers, and it's not just tasks. We want to be a solution for crypto adoption, and that requires a lot more than just one component. Yeah, Chris, you're very, very, very correct on that, and we've already got an answer for it. So I'm not going to tell you what it is, because then it's not hard to create, but it's hard to figure out. So we can move on to separate blockchain. We had some questions about the blockchain, what that means. It's in our white paper. Why do we need a blockchain? How are we going to move the tokens from one blockchain to the other? There's a lot of questions about that, and I really appreciate that people are asking that, because it means that they're understanding more than just the surface level of what we're doing here today, and they see that there's something more there. And so I want to take this opportunity and really talk about blockchain in general. And this might be, something that doesn't interest everybody, because maybe they only care about the marketing side of what we do or we don't do. But there's some major issues in blockchain, major issues. And I'm going to talk about some of those issues before we talk about, our solutions and why we're making solutions. You need to understand, what the problems are that are out there. Currently, there's a lot of projects, right? There's a lot of projects in the blockchain space. There's, a handful of really good projects that are working on making blockchains themselves, new blockchain protocols. Most projects are piggybacked off of another blockchain, but there are exceptions to that. There are guys who are making their own blockchains. And some of those blockchains look to be very good. But there's some major issues with the way that blockchains are currently being structured and implemented. To my knowledge, they have not, the issues that I'm discussing here today have not been solved. I have not seen a project that is addressing these issues. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, just saying I'm not aware of it. And if any of you guys have a project that has addressed these things, I would love to hear about it, because I'd be interested. But the biggest problem in blockchain is the idea of latency, okay, and scalability. Those are your two biggest problems with blockchain. Anyone who's been around the blockchain space, they've probably seen, like latency, blockchain slowing down, excessive fees. All this is related to the issues that I'm describing today, right? It all plays a role. Maybe you guys, some of you guys remember CryptoKitty, okay? CryptoKitty pretty much by itself took the Ethereum blockchain and grinded to a halt, all by itself. And that tells you right there, there's no possibility for that blockchain to scale, right? Every day new projects come on. Every day new projects are added to the Ethereum blockchain. But yet one single project, decently successful, but one single project brought the whole thing to its knees. Now, there's ways to solve that, right? And the idea of bringing on more nodes, bringing on more mining power, all those things sound great, but there's a major backbone problem there, and that is latency. Because the second that a node, which is everyone who's connected, is allowed to participate at the same level, meaning I'm a node, I'm able to participate, you're a node, you're able to participate. Well, you might be on a dial-up connection in Africa. So you don't have the same ability to transfer data at the same rate as I do. Ethereum doesn't address this issue. And there's one reason they don't address it is because the infrastructure itself is a problem. Infrastructure across the world is not similar. You know, there's places where you can have fiber connections. There's other places where people are literally dealing with dial-up at this point in time. So the idea of decentralization is a very difficult problem to solve because you have data that A, has to go to multiple places. B, you don't know how long it's going to take to get there. So that creates an environment that cannot scale at enterprise level. Enterprise applications, you're dealing with millisecond response times. Sometimes you're dealing with nanosecond response times, depending on what you're building. With blockchain, you know, if you go create a DApp today, you're going to be looking at a 30-second, maybe a minute page load. That's not usable for a user. Or should I say, everyday people will never use that. It's a step back to 1991 as far as speed, delay, and usability. So it sounds really good on paper. And I know that we're selling this idea, and I believe in the idea as a whole. But there are some other problems that are not code-based. They're not software-based. We're talking about hardware infrastructure, fiber in the ground, lines being run, and that's a problem for blockchain in general. Outside of that, you have exponential growth patterns within the current blockchains that just blow up. They absolutely blow up. The I/O needs on Ethereum are very close to being maxed out as they stand. And what I mean by I/O is, I mean how much a hard drive can actually deal with on an ongoing basis. So we're talking about data coming in, data going out of a hard drive. Currently, you can't even run Ethereum successfully as a full node on a regular hard drive. You need an SSD drive. Unfortunately, SSD drives are the top of the line that technology currently has available. So what's next? We're dealing with an infinite problem, right, that does not have a hardware solution to back it up. So there's some real problems here in the space. But I'm not going to go into too much more detail there because I think I've probably gotten technical enough. One second. Okay, so now it comes down to the solution, right? And so I've addressed some of the problems. You know, this is one of the reasons I feel very strongly about Latium being on its own chain. Not because I don't believe in the projects that are out there, but because I see real limitations in the way things are currently implemented. And I believe that those limitations cannot scale to an enterprise class application, which is what we're trying to build with Latium. So if we're successful in getting, you know, 1 million, 5 million, 10 million users online, right? And all of our data is going through the Ethereum blockchain, it's not going to work. And we know that. So we need a solution that's going to solve that. And in order to do that, we need to also address the bulk that's in these blockchains that doesn't necessarily need to be there. You know, the idea of proof of work and proof of stake, all of these ideas revolve around the idea of inflating the supply and rewarding a miner, right? But there's other ways to incentivize a miner outside of just getting newly created coins. And if you look at those options outside of just newly created coins, you remove a lot of bulk, right? The idea of mining rigs, right? These are pieces of hardware that are created specifically to create new coins. And they go through complex algorithms, or should I say, they go through a massive quantity to find that winning block and get those coins. None of that is needed in an environment where you have a fixed supply. You don't need any of that. You do need a way to incentivize miners, but you do not need any of the processes around a mining rig that currently exists, which quite frankly is all just a bunch of bulk that's not needed. So you've got this massive amount of computer processing power that we're using right now for BTC, none of which really has anything to do with the blockchain itself. It only has to do with the creation of new Bitcoins. If there's another way to incentivize the miners to mine, you don't need that at all. So all that processing power is literally wasted. Now, people would tell you that, well, that's what makes proof of work function, right? Well, to that, I would say you've got roughly 60 million plus Bitcoin in circulation. And I could be wrong, but I think that we're minting 10 new Bitcoin or 12 and a half Bitcoin at this point per block. So the idea here, right, this is what you're being sold. The idea is that 16 million in supply is offset by, these, whatever it is, 1,000 new Bitcoin coming into existence a day. And that's what holds the market up. Well, that sounds nice, but from an economic standpoint, there's no possibility that that could be true. 16 million items cannot be valued on the price of 1,000. That's not the way things work. It couldn't work that way. So what we're really dealing with is the cost of those 16 million, which were already brought into creation, and a lot of those were brought into creation quite a long time ago. So although the concept of proof of work, I think, is a good idea, I'm not downing the idea of proof of work. What I'm saying is that the idea that that is what makes the price go up, right, is economically not sound. That's what I'm saying. So getting back into that, taking these processes out of a blockchain that are unneeded, that are bulky, that require all this excess processing power that we don't need, I think that's very important. And I think that's one of the reasons that we have to go into our own chain. Our chain needs to be lean. It needs to be fast. It needs to address the general concept of what a blockchain is, which is a ledger that is validated by multiple parties and open to the public. If you take that concept and build upon that without all the extra stuff, what you find is that it's a much simpler process from a usability standpoint. You don't need massive amounts of computer processing power to validate the chain, because we're talking about kilobytes here. It's not a massive process to mine a block if all we're talking about is a megabyte, 2 megabytes of data. But that's not how Bitcoin and Ethereum work. They're going through tons of processes trying to get the nonce. And once that happens, they get paid for it, right? But in the Latium blockchain, that won't need to exist. Now, the next question might be, well, then how do we incentivize miners? Well, we have a fee structure in place. And the Latium network will have fees. They will be nominal fees. But our goal is that those nominal fees combined with high volume at an enterprise level will create value for anyone mining. And also, they don't need to be, I said mining, they're not really even miners to me, right? They're confirmers, whatever we want to call them. But that process will not require any special hardware. Anybody can do that with a regular computer. And so where they need a ton of processing power, we'll just need quantity. And so even if our incentives aren't as good, I guess you could say, the cost of it being involved will be much less. So we believe that we can take that the process of a blockchain, trim it down, make it have value, make it lean, take out the things we don't need, and make it where something that anyone could participate, right, on a confirmation basis, not just mining rigs. Okay. Any questions around the blockchain? Let's see. Yeah, blockchain is unsustainable. Yes, I totally agree. Blockchain mining is unsustainable. That's the whole issue. Well, I won't claim that I know a lot about Tangle and DAG. I have not looked into them in detail, and I'm more than happy to review them. So I don't really want to make any statements on those technologies. But to my knowledge, no one is addressing the infrastructure issue, and no one is addressing the hardware issue of infinitely scaling data long term, right? So the only way you can address this, which I haven't given a real footprint, I want to be careful about what I say because I think what we're doing is pretty unique. But what I can tell you is that not all nodes in our system will participate at the same level. And there will be a need for storage and repositories and of data, and certain nodes will participate in that. They'll be incentivized differently to participate in that, and they will have to have infrastructure requirements to participate in that. But the idea of having the full chain, right? Full chain needing to be presented on all nodes, that won't be true, because any idea of a general ledger, right? It continues to grow, right? So it doesn't matter how good the tech is. At some point, unless that's sharded, divided up, there's no way that can continue forever, right? So that's something that has to be addressed. Now I know that point specifically is being addressed. The idea of sharding, that's being addressed, but that's only one side of the equation. To me, you've got to address that and latency, or else you just don't have something that won't work. You know, even the higher end chains that I've looked into, like EOS. You know, I've talked with EOS, and what they're doing is really cool. But their goals are to be able to handle 100,000 transactions a second. A single computer can handle 500,000 transactions a second if it's done correctly. So my point is that you can't take an enterprise application that's doing billions of transactions a day and put that on a blockchain that only supports 100,000 transactions a second. It's not going to work. Any other questions around blockchain before we move on? Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's really all I have to go over today. So I'm going to open up the floor. Any questions that you guys have, you can ask away. I'm more than happy to answer anything that's relevant. If you ask me when moon, I'm going to tell you the same thing I've always told you. But anything else, if it's a relevant question, please ask. I'm more than happy to open up the floor. Or if you feel like I have not addressed any of your questions that have come in earlier, it's possible because, again, I was trying to stay on point. But so if you have anything, go ahead and ask. Tour of the office? No. I'm not gonna give you a tour of the office because, quite frankly, it's not that clean. We're a bunch of tech geeks. I can show you out our window. There you go. Marketing plans. Marketing plans, I believe that we addressed some of that early on. So I'll touch on it just a little bit. As we're approaching production, we're going to start marketing more. We've already started some small campaigns. We're trying to acquire metrics. Okay, so the idea here is that we will be marketing through banners, right? We will be marketing through partners, and we will be marketing through trade shows. Just so you know the avenues that we're going to be marketing on. But those things are going to scale over time. So as far as the timelines for that, we're starting to market now. We will be marketing through the month of May, trying to acquire around 10,000 users. We're going to let that sit in the system and kind of see what retention looks like. And that's going to drive adjustments, right? Whether it's adjustments to our marketing campaigns or adjustments to the apps. It's going to give us a baseline for us to be able to make good marketing decisions moving forward. As we get that dialed in, marketing will continue to grow and grow and grow, ultimately leading to production release, which will come out with a big marketing blast, both digital, physical with trade shows and partnerships. But ultimately that run will continue well after production release. So it's not like we're just going to build up to production release and cut off. We're going to build up to production release, and we're going to continue marketing heavily, probably for the first 3 months. And we'll start tearing some of that down as we're finding what's more effective. We're also going to have a full-blown affiliate system as well, guys. So just throwing that out there. That's another avenue for marketing that we haven't really even talked about. But we will have a full-blown affiliate system as well. Any other questions? I know there's a mild delay, guys, so I'll wait I'll wait a minute or so. If you have anything, please don't hesitate to post. I'm more than happy to address anything you guys put up. That's, again, something I can address. Or so filters for tasks. I assume you're talking about the ability to, sort, right? I don't know if you saw the snippet that I showed you on iOS, but it's already there. That's actually one of our features in the patch. The basic filters, you'll be able to filter by value, by rating, and by newest. We'll make those more granular over time. We don't see a lot of value in making a ton of sort categories until there's enough content to sort. Why am I wearing glasses? Because I can't see without them. Okay. Any other questions? Have we considered using AngelList to bring on staff? I'm not going to say that we really have gone through AngelList as a way to bring on staff. I'm definitely open to entertain it. I don't think we're going to have a problem. I mean, we get contacted quite frequently about people wanting to work with Latium. So I don't think we're going to have a problem bringing on people. We've been pretty much keeping a close eye. We brought on a few people after the token sale, and we're going to be bringing on a few more. But really, from a development standpoint, sometimes it's harder to integrate a new person in when you've already got everybody on the same page, and you actually get a negative impact in your development environment. And we have a decent development team here. We've got 7 full-time devs right now. So there's a lot of development going on. And, people might say, well, why don't you have 50 devs? Well, I would say, I don't know why anybody needs 50 devs, honestly. YouTube was built with 10 people total before it was sold for $1 billion. So it's just a matter of how you utilize what you have. But blockchain expert wise, I definitely want to bring some people in that are understand the problems at the level that I do, that can help. That is something that we've got one other resource within the team that's good in that area. So as we start building out to our private blockchain, that's definitely something we're going to need for sure. What incentives for people to move from other platforms they're working on? Well, that's a good question, Tim. And I assume by what you're talking about, other task-based platforms. Well, there's a lot of different reasons. Okay, one is that I don't know of any task-based platform that does everything we're talking about doing. There's task-based platforms that do portions of what we're doing, but I think that ultimately what it is transparency and trust, right? Validation of a user and validation of their score, right? That they actually have value to work with. I think ultimately over time, those will start bringing people in, outside of the fact that we're multi-facility when these other applications are kind of niche market. But I want to be clear, our goal is not just to bring in tasks and task workers, that we have a bigger goal here, and that's crypto adoption. So, there's a lot of different, there's no singular reason that a user comes into a system typically. There's going to be multiple reasons. So we want to facilitate every potential reason as the best we can. And so when it comes to direct competition with tasks, I think people will see the value in being able to do physical tasks and digital tasks. Also, the structured flow of a lot of tasks apps, it's just not the same concept as Latium. We're here, you come in and you've got somebody who's ready to hire you, right? There's tasks available to be done. That's a different concept. I mean, you got MTurk that's kind of like that, but they're a little bit more systematic and they're a little bit more techie. We want to go beyond just that. Mr. Coffee still working with Latium left. I'm not quite. Oh, John. Yeah, John's still involved with the team. Yes, John is still an advisor on the project. That's a good question. I don't know that that's a good idea with Tim, with people's reviews being transferred from another system, that means that we can trust their system, right? And personally, I think that's a big problem in the industry, is that you can't trust these systems. There's a lot of reasons that I could point to why you can't trust them, which is one of the reasons that Latium is being built the way it is, with proof of human, and the whole process of rating being outside of this concept of leaving stars, because I can pay somebody to give me reviews, you know, and that's important. That's an important part of evaluating a relationship. So I think our goal is to invert that concept, right? Our goal is to port our ratings out, not port other ratings in. Okay, let's see. So Latium platform and Latix currency have the potential to spin off and microtransactions for internet things. I'll be honest with you. That's not something I've conceptualized at this point. You know, what the future holds for Latium down the road, it all depends on how we scale, and what our user base looks like. Ultimately, you know, we have ambition far beyond what's laid out as our roadmap. You know, we're ambitious guys here. We want to have an impact on the world. You know, this is not a money thing. Okay, my lifestyle hasn't changed a drop because of Latium. Okay, I've been successful with other businesses, and I'm not focused on the money side of it. I'm focused on adoption, because I know I want to see crypto successful, because I see the social ramifications that has for the world. And I know that where we are right now, that's not going to happen until some technology is made, until some concepts of how that comes about changes. And there's other projects out there trying to do the same thing. And I think there's going to be a lot of synergies over time to make that happen. But Internet of Things is not exactly something that I've targeted. Let's see. Can you talk about exchange situation? I addressed that earlier, so you might want to watch it. But all I can tell you is that, you know, we've made a statement about 4 to 10 exchanges by production. I think we'll hit that. You know, if you're thinking that we're going to get listed on Binance tomorrow, I can't make any guarantees about that. I don't know. You know, I mean, are we not applying for Binance? Of course, we're applying for lots of exchanges. We've applied for the top 50. And we're being transparent in that. But ultimately, it's up to these exchanges to participate, or it's up to us to make a product that is good enough that they want us on their exchange. Buybacks, you know, it's a concept we've tossed around. I'm not going to say yes or no. It might be something that we do in the future if we feel like we need it. But our focus, again, you know, it's just not short-term pricing. It's not our focus. You know, so I believe if we continue on the path that we're on, we continue to develop and we build a good product and we market that product, I believe the long-term price will follow the product itself. I think anything else we do, and I'm not going to throw everything under the bus, but I think anything else we do, the short-term, ultimately is probably going to end up not being as effective, in my opinion. You know, if we go in and we buy the market up today, what value does that have long term if the market wants to come back down tomorrow, right? So the real question is what keeps pricing up, and what makes people desire to be part of the product and the project. And I think that's having a good product for them to use and having a growing user base. I think that's what gets people, you know, in the door and makes them want to stay there. When Latium merchandise, we'll have to talk with Kevin on that. We had discussions about it. It will be coming at some point. I don't have an ETA for you, but it is something where we do want to have some merchandise out there. We'll. Let's see. No, Chris, I understand. You know, the idea of validation. You know, I mean, well, I guess Internet of Things means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. You know, Internet of Things is, you know, my coffee machine being able to connect and tell me my coffee's ready. I mean, there's a lot of different things that come out of that. So it just depends on the terminology. As far as the idea of validation and being able to validate a user, right? B transactions, and that system being larger than just internal for the Latium network. Yes, that's definitely a focus. I mean, our goal is to make something that is usable by other companies at an enterprise level, other developers at an enterprise level, and ultimately gives them facilities that are better than what they currently have available. That's our goal. Tim, what is the main use case for LATX tokens? Well, if you watch the whole AMA, you should probably, you should take away a few examples of the value of the LATX token. But it's not a singular thing. You've got the network side of it, which with blockchain will come online. You'll have to have the token to participate in the network. So that will come down to other developers, other companies. If they're utilizing our technology, they'll be paying fees in LATX, and that will require purchase. As far as exchanges, every token we add is going to be paired against LATX, so there's a reason to buy. If they're wanting to market their ICO or their token sale, or they're wanting to promote it or run a bounty program, that's going to require them to purchase LATX to do that. So there's numerous incentives for why somebody would need to purchase LATX. Any debit card in the future? It's something we've talked about. Obviously, you've got a predecessor there, or a precursor, and that would be fiat. So, we try to prioritize our development. Debit card is definitely something that's on the table, and I think it's just a matter of time till that's available. But there's other things that have to take place. I mean, production release has got to take place, fiat has got to take place, and debit cards could fit in with that. Let's see. All right. Is there any other questions? Do you think we're going to get listed on any exchange before the end of the year? I've answered that a few times, and I'll answer it again. 4 to 10 exchanges by production. That's our goal. We got 2 in the bag so far. We expect to have 2 more before production, somewhere between 2 and 8. So yes would be the answer to that question. Google Store, really, honestly, Google is not the problem. Apple is far, they're far more stringent, right, than Google is. If you're a developer, you would probably know that. If you've developed iOS apps, Apple is very, very difficult, and you kind of see that in their apps. Like, there's less apps available for the App Store than there is for Google Play, and one of the reasons is how stringent Apple is. But bottom line is, we're going to build a compliant app. What that looks like is really up to Apple. Unfortunately, it's not up to us. We're going to build an app, and the way that process works is we submit our app. They come back with a review, and they tell us, if it doesn't get approved, they tell us why, and we have to make adjustments. But this is not something new to us. We've worked with Apple before. And, we'll get through that process. The apps, because of that, the apps could look different. That's a fact. It's a fact we can't control. What the feature set within iOS app and the feature set within the Google Play app versus the web, there might be discrepancies there because we're going to have to be compliant. I would touch on the proprietary blockchain, but honestly, that's like a good 15-minute rant, and I already did it. So my suggestion would be, if you did not see that, you probably want to rewatch the video once it's available. But we did go in decently in depth about, the blockchain, why it's there, why we need it, and some of the concepts around what it will be. All right, boots on the ground. Let's see here. Oh, as far as service providers on the, boots on the ground. I mean, I think that the reason we haven't got boots on the ground right now is because, again, we haven't been in a real marketing heavy phase. With production release, there will be tasks. There will be tasks to go out and like literally set up a physical location. Like those things will come over time. And we do plan on using the Latium network because it makes more sense for us to incentivize our own community than it does for us to go out to third parties. So, we're aware that we're probably going to have to utilize both of those avenues at the beginning. But our ultimate goal is to have an internal marketing engine through our own community. So, yeah, there will definitely be things available with production release that you can go out and physically do. There are already digital tasks that you can do, and those will be expanded, and we'll continue to add more. So, yeah, that's true. Let's see. Quick overview of how workers are paid on the platform. As far as the way that workflow currently functions, a task is created, somebody goes through, they apply, they're selected by the employer, they're hired, the employee starts a task, the employee marks the task complete. Any point in those in that flow can be adjusted, right? I could cancel an application. I could make an offer. I could extend the amount of time that employees are able to work on a task. Ultimately, an employee marks it complete. Employer has a decision. He pays him. He says, well, I don't want to pay you full amount. I don't think it was worth it. They work through those issues. And ultimately, it's going to be paid. It's going to be a partial payment. It's going to be canceled. Or it's going to be declined payment. In the current system, declined payment is kind of where that stops. In the future, there'll be a full arbitration suite in that as well, and that will be fed back into the community. So literally the community, part of the tasks available will be arbitration. But that's not something that's available in the beta. Currently, the goal in the beta right now is that they work through the resolution by basically passing back and forth until someone is successful, whether that's cancellation or payment. Yeah, we do plan on making our own blockchain. Like I said, it's been discussed. Let's see what else you guys have here. Well, thanks, Kevin D. I appreciate it. Well, Tim, they will be paid in LatX systematically. Okay. What they receive ultimately will be up to them, meaning that over time they'll be able to hedge, right? They'll also be able to offset. So as the internal exchanges grow, the facilities will be available for somebody to offset directly into another currency if they choose to. That will be available. But systematically, everything still takes place in LatX. So if the employer is starting a task, they have to have LatX to do it. Whether the employee keeps that LatX or wants to transfer it into something else, ultimately fiat too, that will be up to the employee to decide. And we'll have the facilities to be able to do that. Of course, we'll have the facilities to do that immediately, but it'll be a manual process with the internal exchange. Ultimately, we want to automate that process where they can just make a setting and offset. Any other questions? Yeah, I mean, YouTube reviews and things like that are, they're definitely something that we're looking at for marketing. I think there's value in that, but it's just a matter of, when we market and if we've got the ability to retain. To me, it's not just about starting this marketing fire. It's about maintaining that over time. So again, if you didn't watch the whole AMA, you might want to go back and to the beginning because we kind of talked about our general business direction and some of our business principles, and it might answer some of those questions. I feel like a lot of times when people ask a question, they're assuming that we haven't thought of something. And I'm not saying we've thought of everything. I know we haven't, but we have thought of a lot. And most everything we do is because of a calculated decision. It's not just something we do, off the spur of the moment. And so there's a reason that we're not marketing heavily right now, and that's explained. Can a promotional video be created which demonstrates two people interact? Oh, that's a great idea, Chris. That's a great idea. It's something we actually talked about way back with the token sale, but you're bringing it back to our mind. That's a good idea. I think that we'll make that happen. So appreciate the tip. Popularization of crypto has always been, ever since I first got in the crypto space in 2013. The idea of growing that out has always been a passion for me. So it's really a matter of timing. I feel like the market we're on the cusp of being ready to move into that space. So we're trying to catch that wave of crypto getting a lot of PR, getting adopted, being a buzzword. That's a big part of it, is timing. A lot of projects fail not because what they're trying to do is incorrect or not thought out or not good. A lot of it comes down to timing. And so timing is critical when you're looking at launching a business. It's like if you had a flying car right now, people would probably have interest in that. But if the technology costs $500,000, you're not going to get mass adoption, right? So the timing would be bad for that. So that's a consideration for us. And I think the timing being now, I think there's enough buzz around crypto that people want to be interested in it. They want to figure it out. They want to play with it. But there's not really an easy way to do that. And so that's what we see Latium as more than anything. And under that umbrella, a lot of different things flow out of it, and tasks, one to many. That's one thing, the idea of a task and work, the idea of easy exchange, the idea of easy transfer, the idea of me being able to send money to you by typing in your username, right? Versus a wallet. That's got value. I mean, a normal user is used to doing things like that. They're not used to, this huge string of characters. And that can be seen also in the way that the blockchain is utilized. If you look at the blockchain, or go to Etherscan, you're going to see a lot of people send test transactions. Well, why are they sending the tests? Well, because they trust that they're doing it right. So they want to make sure it works. And I get that. I totally get that. And that's something that we need to solve, because everyday people, they're not okay with sending their money and losing it. They want something that's going to work. And they don't want their ignorance to cost them money, which is the case right now in crypto. Oh, that's a very good question. Yeah, I wanted to actually address the advisor. Somebody, one of the questions was, around time, and my dedication to the project, and Latium being a failure because we haven't succeeded in 3 months. And I just want to say, that to act like any one thing is the same across the globe, across every possible interaction and metric, is just not true. Advisor means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. The role is normally defined with who you're advising with. The amount of time that you spend is normally defined. What you're expected to do is normally defined. So the idea that, you can be an advisor and all advisors are the same, or the amount of time, effort involved is all the same, it's just not true. Quite frankly, that's not the only project I advise. I advise another project. I've turned down the vast majority of projects that have come to me to advise because I only want to be involved in things that I believe in, and two, have the time to be able to focus on. Latium is my main priority. It's my main focus, and it's where I spend the majority of my time, and that will continue to be that way. However, there's a decent amount of experience that I've got through my years of business experience, but also through going through a token sale and the crypto space in general. So that has value. And if I see projects that I feel like I can help, I evaluate, how much time and effort it takes to facilitate that. And if it's something that makes sense and I can do, and I see a bigger vision, right? Because everything we're working with, everything I'm advising on, has the potential for bigger integrations than just me advising. Okay. I don't want to be just a name and a face on a website. I want there to be something behind it. And so every project, and I'm not going to say I won't take another project. I don't know. Those I only advise on 2 currently, and those are the only 2 that I've seen that I was interested in, because I see real synergy as those platforms grow out. Let's see. I'm just reading through here, guys. Security audits. Yeah, Tim. I mean, of course. In fact, we've already had some, but I'm definitely open to more as we go. Start migrating into the financial realm with the exchange and other things that we're planning in the future. That becomes more and more relevant. But yeah, we're definitely wanting to make sure our security is in place. I do feel pretty confident in what we had to date, but I'm very open to additional firms being involved, and it really comes down to where the value is, right? To me, the value of somebody stamping a piece of paper and saying you're secure, I would prefer somebody not giving me that piece of paper and me knowing that they actually went through the right process to show that we were secure. Because to me, it's not about showing the general public that we're secure as much as it is me knowing we're secure, because I need to know we're secure. Because I care about people not losing their funds. I care about the long-term vision of Latium. So, I'm open to a firm giving us a certificate, but again, to me, it's the underlying purpose that's there that I really care more about. I care that we are secure, not just that we're stating to the public that we're secure. Because I can tell you, I've seen plenty of security audits, and they fail security or they get hacked. Happens all the time. I actually know the guys at Hacking. It's a possibility. We might be working with them. A lot of people use PayPal. Yeah. I mean, I've used PayPal in the past pretty extensively, even dating back to the mid 2000s as a business provider. It's a possibility. I can't say yay or nay at this point. Ultimately, PayPal has a lot of problems that I'd like to solve too, but we're going to have to partner with the right people, and it's going to have to make sense. So, do we have that in place today? No. Is it possible in the future that we work with PayPal? Certainly. When it comes to payment processors, they're definitely one of the tops on the list that we would entertain. Now, yes. Let's see. Just reading through here, guys. As an employer on Latium, it's cumbersome to keep verifying tasks. Yep. I agree. Everything you said there about the process of management we're aware of, and a lot of that's going to be automated. You're going to be able to make settings. You're going to have settings to be able to say, I want to pay everybody, I want to hire everybody over a certain trust score. All those things are being worked on, and they'll be available in production release. We acknowledge that it's not an optimal ease of use in the beta. It's not optimal. We get that. But it is a beta platform, and it will be improved upon. But yes, those concepts are being addressed, and I think that our solutions will be pretty good. For people who want security and they want to have a say in everything, they'll have that if they want it. And for people who want the convenience of just letting things fly through, they'll have that. Chris, you're reading far into things, but I like it. I'm not going to answer what that, what exactly our goal was there, but you can read into it however you want. You have a couple pie in the sky use cases. Well, it depends on how high in the sky you want to go. I mean, we keep things relevant to the current process and production release, or we could say, well, give me a use case from 2 years out, 3 years out. You define that for me, I'll answer your question, because I'm not sure what you're looking for. But the case of 3 years from now versus the case from 3 months from now will be very different. Any more questions, guys? Okay. Well, if no one has any more questions, I appreciate everybody coming and taking the time to participate. You know, it's I really appreciate everyone in the community. I appreciate people that take time and think about things, you know, on a technical level or on a business level that make us think. You know, that's, you know, we appreciate that. You know, we want to be the best we can be. We're not infallible. We're capable of making mistakes, and we won't always do the right thing. But our goal is to be the best we can be, and our goal is to improve. 2 years out. Okay, I'll do this before we go. So we just dropped a whole bunch of people, but it's fine. All right. 2 years out, a use case for Latium would be you walk into a general retail store or your gas station and you use LatX to pay for your gas. How does that happen? A lot of work. I'm not foolish enough to say that that's where we're going to go. That's pie in the sky. Could we get there? Yeah, it's definitely possible. And that's the goal. For me, I always try to aim very, very high. And the reason I do is because even if I don't hit it, I'm going to land higher up than I would without aiming for it. So we aim for the top. You know, the idea of having every interaction you do over time, doing it through Latium is the concept. You know, whether it's purchase, payment, banking, work. But again, you know, we're talking pie in the sky. So I want to talk with you about, you know, what's feasible in the short term too. And that's all those things are, you know, don't hold me accountable to that 6 months from now. You know, don't hold me accountable for 2 years from now. It's the hope, you know, it's the goal. But I can't guarantee we'll hit that. But that's what we're trying to do. Can I explain zero fees in the internal exchange? Yeah, there just aren't fees. I mean, it's that simple. There's really not a lot to explain. We don't want to charge people to exchange. The idea is that you will deposit funds. Obviously, if there's gas charges, transaction fees there, we can't stop that for incoming funds, but all funds going out, coming in, transactions between those, there won't be fees. So what you deposit, what you get back. Why? Because we want people to use it. And we don't care about making revenue on it now. It just doesn't matter. There's a lot of other avenues that we can make revenue in. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close up here. I definitely appreciate you all showing up and asking your questions. It's been fun. I want to do more of these in the future. So hopefully you guys have appreciated this and walked away learning something that you didn't know about the project coming in, which is the goal. Thanks so much.